I was just wondering, why are people so happy now? It's our last day. I expect to see more tears. Oh, I don't want to go. That's why sometimes when people take photographs, especially the group photographs, I always wonder why they take photographs at the end of the retreat. It's good marketing. At the end of the retreat, everyone looks really happy. Is it because they're all enlightened, or because this afternoon they go home and they can do this and do that? I think you should take photographs in the middle of a retreat. Much more accurate. But anyway, I do hope you've enjoyed so far this retreat. And I hope you remember me promising you something. I always said the best meditations happen on the last day of the retreat, which is now. Why? I think a lot of times it is because for once we can actually stop trying. We stop sort of having goals. When we have a goal, that takes us somewhere else. We're not really here when we're thinking of where we're going to be next. So that's one of the reasons why on the very last day of a retreat, you realize you're not going to get anything, you're not going to get enlightened, you're not going to get any deep meditation. You've been doing this so far, nothing's worked. So eventually you let go, you give up. And when you give up, that's called renunciation. And once you renounce, it means you can get nice and peaceful. And when you get nice and peaceful, it's quite surprising, because you didn't do anything. At last you're remembering the teachings. I often say that when I meditate, I don't do anything. I just sit down and let go. And because I've been peaceful, inclining towards peace, teaching others to be peaceful, that's where my mind goes, all by itself. I don't need to tell it. It is very much like the driverless bus. I remember one lady, she told me that she'd heard me talk about this so often. On this occasion, she was just asleep at night. And when she was asleep at night, her dream was that she was in a car, I was in the passenger seat, she was driving me, and she lost control of the car. And it was going faster and faster, and there's a big sign, dangerous cliff, be careful. And it went faster and faster until we both went over the cliff. And she started getting really scared. We're going to die. And all I said was just let go. And so she did. And as she let go, the car was going really fast, and down the bottom of the cliff, there was a little curvature in the road. And so we took the curve really well. We survived. And as we were going incredibly fast, there was a very sharp right-hand turn, which no car could make, but it just relax to the max. And facing certain death, the car by itself took the curve perfectly. And that was just a dream she had, but she told me in the interviews, your teachings work. That I managed to do that in a dream. And so I said, make sure you don't do that in real life. Don't drive over cliffs. But nevertheless, it was interesting the way that what she'd heard during the retreat had influenced her and stopped her overreacting in a dream. And sometimes, that always works. Be able to let go and relax to the max. So one of the things I wanted to talk about this morning was, there's a couple of other ways of meditating. They're not really different. They're exactly the same, but just in a different language. I did mention one of those in passing, but I'm going to say more about it today, and that's the 1,000-petal lotus. And I love that simile. Yes, There's many other traditions. There's only one tradition which the Buddha taught, and that's called Eightfold Path. And all the others are just adaptations of the Eightfold Path. But they're all telling the same thing, and that was the one about the 1,000-petal lotus. You all know what a lotus looks like, and you also notice that at night time it's closed up. And in the morning you get some sun, and when the sun falls on that lotus, it very slowly opens up. It's not fast at all, it's slow. And that's like meditation. Don't be in a hurry. Please never ask me for the shortcut. Sometimes people have done that. You know where? Actually, not in Hong Kong. They're very good in Hong Kong. Singapore. We haven't got much time. Please, how can I get enlightened? Quickly, today. But once I like that, because sometimes you come up with some interesting comments. One of those comments, he said, Buddhism, it's all about suffering. What is suffering? And I said that suffering is asking from this world something it can never give you. That was quite a good definition, I thought, done on the spot. Suffering is asking from this world something it can never give you. How many times do we do that? Okay, you can type it in if you want. Suffering is asking from this world something it can never give you. And there's a lot of times you see yourself doing that. Things actually do go wrong. Things get delayed. Aircraft don't take off. The internet is down. You can't enter your room for some reason. I remember this guy. He was like a monastery hopper. A monastery hopper, and this is 40 years ago now. All his possessions, the only possession he had was a Harley-Davidson motorbike. That was the only thing he really cared about. He didn't have any family. He didn't even have a home, no apartment, hardly anything in his bank account. All he had was a Harley-Davidson motorbike. Do you remember this story? Did I tell it yesterday? But anyway, so he came to our monastery when it was being built. He said, can I stay here for a few days? He stayed for a couple of months because it was very helpful, with the building. And so eventually, when we did one building project, he says, not time to go now. And so he just got on his motorbike and went to the next spiritual home. Not always Buddhism, but any place which he could be of service. I call him like a monastery hopper. And anyway, he became a good friend, and I remember him telling me this story, that he was in Sydney, and he was doing his shopping in one of the shopping malls. So he did the shopping, and then when he went back to his motorbike to go wherever he was staying, he found out in the car park of the shopping mall his motorbike had been stolen. And that was the only thing which he cared about in life. That was his only possession. And so he felt really angry at first. What sort of low-life drug addict over in Sydney had stolen his bike? And instead of getting too angry and too miserable, then he remembered he'd been in my monastery, and he'd learned, you can steal my things, but don't let anybody steal your happiness and your peace. You don't have to let them steal that. So he said, okay, yeah, that's true. So then he started thinking of his motorbike, and he's saying, look, whoever's stolen it, it's like it's got a new owner now. May my dear old motorbike please be looked after the way it's looked after me. And I hope whoever's got it now enjoys it and has so much pleasure and sense of freedom from it that I had. I deliberately, willingly give it up. And he actually thought like that. It was only when he finished thinking like that that he realized he was in the wrong floor of the car park. They all look the same. Anyway, he went to the correct story of the car park, and there was his bike. No problem. He was quite proud of himself. He was being honest. The only thing he cared about had gone, and he just wished it well, and wished whoever now had it was doing well. That's what life is like. It gives you these wonderful opportunities to be free. But anyway, the thousand petal lotus, I love that story. A couple of reasons which you'll soon find out. When the sun comes up, the outermost petals open up. Next time you see a lotus closed up, have a look at it, a close look. It doesn't look anything special when it's closed up, because the outermost petals are not fragrant. They're like corrugated. And they've got, no real colour in them, because the outermost petals have to withstand the weather and everything else which is thrown at it. It's a protector petal. And then when it opens up inside, the first real layer of petals, they've got a tiny bit of fragrance, but not much. A little bit of colour, but not much. But when the next layer of petals is open, that allows the sun to fall on the next layer of petals, and that layer of petals opens up. And what's inside it, the second layer of petals, is much more beautiful and fragrant. And they too open up eventually, and the next one opens up, and the next layer opens up. And the deeper you go into the layer of petals, the more fragrant they become, the more beautiful, the more colourful they become, and also the more thin they become. They become way more profound. And they only open up because of the light and the warmth of the sun. I always make sure to add that importance of the warmth of the sun. And they have to open up. The lotus doesn't put any effort into it. It just stays there, and this is nature. And that's the same with each one of you. You've been receiving the warmth and the light of the sun for a couple of days. And as your mindful and kindness shines on you, you tend to open up. You go inside. And the nice part of this is the effortlessness of it all. And the two most important ingredients is your mindfulness awareness and your kindness, the kindfulness. And as you go deeper and deeper in, where is the next layer or level in the meditation practice? And all these beautiful stages of meditation, where does the next level live? Right inside the one you're on at this moment. And I'm saying this not just to inspire you, but really all these jhanas, they're inside you right now. You don't have to search for them somewhere else. You just need to open up the outside. And as you go inward to where you are right now, inside of those you see like the first jhana and the second jhana and the third jhana, all these great enlightenment states. They're in each one of you in this moment, but sometimes they're all covered up. You can't see them. And I love this because I see many people, the last people I'd ever think would get into these deep meditation. And they're the ones who get these deep meditations. The ones who have been here and helping out and serving, the ones I've known for such a long time, like Gerald. I better not say this, should I? Did I say you never get jhana? Of course you will. No, it's the expectation. You just need to just go inside and let it happen. Open the door of your heart. You don't sort of get these jhanas and bliss, see them outside and pull them in. Instead, you just open the door of your heart and be this beautiful patience. Just to make peace, be kind, be happy teaching. You know where that teaching comes from? Make peace, be kind, be gentle. That's my translation of the second factor of the Eightfold Path. It's the Buddha's teaching, which so many people neglect. And the reason why I keep focusing on that, make peace, be kind, be gentle, is because I always knew somehow that the kindness was such an important part of meditation. When I looked at the Eightfold Path, right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, when I looked at that, I thought, where's the kindness? You'd have thought the right kindness should be there somewhere. And it was, I can see it now. And that was actually in the second factor of the Eightfold Path. You trying to remember it now, Freddie? The Samasankappa is, what's the renunciation again now? Nekama Sankappa, Avayapada Sankappa, and Ahingsaka Sankappa. What's renunciation again? Yeah, it's a strange thing. I've noticed this. The more you try and think of something, because you've just forgotten it for a moment, you can't remember it. But as soon as you stop thinking about it and start thinking of something else, then you remember it's nekama. For a moment that had left my mind. Nekama is renunciation. But instead of saying it renunciation, some of you can't really get your head around that. But instead I call it to make peace. When you let go, you renounce. What's left? Beautiful simplicity and peace. So that's a little translation which I do. Make peace. Avayapada is like non-ill will, which means kindness. When I realized that, the Buddha actually taught kindness as an important part of the path. Middle factor of the second factor of the Eightfold Path. And Ahingsaka, I knew what that meant because you'd heard of Mahatma Gandhi and his philosophy of gentleness, ahimsa, non-violence. And it was ahimsa which actually got rid of the British Raj from India. An impossible task. Not through violence, not through armed rebellion, but through peaceful protests. And anyway, I love that ahimsa, that gentleness, kindness, and making peace. That was the important part to the path to Nibbana. And it's really important for meditation. And it's also why I could never understand when you go to a Zen monastery, they've got the Zen monk, and they hit you on the back if you start nodding. Should I do that? No. Honestly, I couldn't do that. If you're really nodding, no way I could be violent. Because one of those reasons was over here in Hong Kong, when I first came over here, I used to stay in this monastery. What was it called again? Yeah, I can't say that, but not in that way. But interesting part in that monastery, we had many visiting monks could stay there, and so sometimes we got all sorts of interesting monks come, and of course, we were humans, so in the afternoon when we had a cup of tea together, we would gossip. I admit, I did that. We had some interesting gossip. And one of the interesting gossip, he told one of the monks from mainland China, it's now, we're all in China now. I've got to be careful what I say. But he told me on one of these Zen retreats, the teacher there tried that method. And there was one of the women there, just like you, was meditating and started to nod. And so the teacher, with the Zen stick, whacked her on the back. She still had her mobile phone in her pocket. She picked out the mobile phone and rang the police. And the police came, arrested the monk, And that was the end of the retreat. You can't do that these days. So I told that story many times. It's really weird, but it makes me laugh. But fair enough. If you go and break your non-violence vows, that's going to happen to you. So anyway, that it goes against what Buddhism is, the gentleness of it. And the fact, there's no way in the world I could ever be cruel or harmful or hurtful to you. And it's the kindness there as well. And that is the second factor of the Eightfold Path. That's how important it is, the gentleness. And because of that, I thought, oh yeah, it's there, but it was kind of obscured. So once you have that kindness and that mindfulness, then things happen. What happens? Your lotus opens up. You know what's inside that lotus? You're stunned by what you experience inside that lotus. It really is beautiful in there, and really profound, and things you never believed existed in there. You see, this breath, this silly old breath, becomes so gorgeous. It's a breath. My goodness, the breath goes in and goes out. If you tell your friends you spent 2 or 3 days just watching your breath, they think you're crazy. Come on, get a life, Ajahn Brahm. And they don't realize it's such a beautiful way of spending 2 or 3 days, watching the breath go in and the breath go out. And the thing is, when you're really mindful and kind, you will notice you never ever breathe in 2 breaths the same. Even the millions of breaths you breathe in one lifetime, every one is different. That's why, if you even look at blades of grass, in the monastery I've never seen 2 blades of grass the same. Certainly no 2 trees the same, but even blades of grass. Now you're becoming really mindful and just seeing the beauty, in this world. And that kind of gets you happy. You don't need to go to a museum to see beauty. You just look at the carpet in front of you. And this is where people think I'm mad. This carpet's a very old carpet. I think it's the same carpet as we first saw the first time we came to this hotel. So many years ago. I think they've cleaned it. They washed it. Good. But it still looks the same. And this, you have a look at it. I love doing little exercises like this. And it's got a pattern on it, but no 2 sides are the same pattern. They're all different. And when you see things like that, you can see just how interesting life is, if you want to. And that makes it so joyful. So after a while, just the old things, which aren't supposed to be beautiful, become beautiful. And your lotus, the deeper you go in, looks more and more delightful the deeper you go in. And because it looks delightful, it keeps you satisfied. If you're not satisfied, that's why the mind wanders off. It's not satisfied, it goes looking for something else. The human mind needs happiness. It's been conditioned that way. If you don't find happiness in meditation, you'll find happiness in fantasies, in looking at your mobile phone, in just going off here, going off there. A few times, well, not a few times, many times, when I've been visiting different places to give talks, they've asked me, we're in Toronto, do you want to see Niagara Falls? Why? If I want to see a waterfall, I just turn on the shower. This is Niagara Falls. Yeah, well, what's the difference? Size. And then, when I was, one of the things I did, I gave some talks in Las Vegas. What did I do in Las Vegas? I can't tell you. What happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. No, they asked me, do you want to see, they call it the Strip. I was in Las Vegas, giving some talks. I never ever seen the Strip, even when I was staying in there. Went from the hotel to this retreat place, and retreat place back to the, from the airport to the hotel, hotel, retreat place, back to the airport. Don't you want to see it? Why? And they said, okay, what about the Grand Canyon? That's not that far from Las Vegas, apparently. Have you ever seen the Grand Canyon? I haven't. And I don't want to. Why? Because I see much more beauty inside. When you meditate. They think I was a bit dumb, but I said, look, I'm a meditation teacher. I actually practice this as well. I'd much rather stay like an hour in my room and meditate than go and see the sights of Hong Kong. I did go up and see the big Buddha statue on Lantau Island. You know, when I went there, do you remember you took me up there, or was it? Not many. Okay. When I went up there, they said, you have to go and see this. So I went up there, and it was cloudy. I was standing at the bottom, couldn't see the top. That's of the statue. The base of the statue, and the head of the statue was just in the clouds. It taught me a lesson. If you want to see the big Buddha statue, there's a Buddha statue here. Just right behind me. So because you see beauty elsewhere, you don't need to go to these tourist places to see beauty. And because of that, the Great Wall of China. How many of you have seen the Great Wall of China? Wow! So many. Have I seen the Great Wall of China? No. If any of you have ever been to my monastery, Bodhinyana Monastery, you can see the wall we've got there. It's called the Great Wall of Bodhinyana. Because I see beauty in different things, and you don't need to go anywhere, you go inside. And if you notice, I always say go inside. The next stage of meditation is right inside the stage of meditation you're in, right in this moment. So you've got all these stages of meditation. Different levels of the lotus opening up. When you close your eyes, the first layer of the lotus is your body. And then after a while that relaxes. Kindfulness and mindfulness on your body. It relaxes so much that the body mostly disappears. And I love saying this because I remember like in Singapore I was teaching all of these executives, and one of them came to complain. So I was meditating and my hands were disappearing. What are you doing? This is normal, this is what's supposed to happen. You don't need your hands when you're meditating, and it's lovely when they disappear. And then your legs disappear, and your body disappears, and your head disappears. The more you disappear, the more free you feel. And if once you experience that, you don't get worried. You say, oh, wonderful. And I have mentioned this in brief. Any of you are still afraid of dying, it's wonderful. When your body gets so loose and light, and you're floating without any weight of the body. My body is very heavy, and it's not just because I eat too much. I thought I could get a laugh there. Oh my goodness. It's just, it gets heavy, it feels heavy. And it's not just heavy because of weight, it's just like heavy because of old age. And it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And it's beautiful when you're free of that. It's like, imagine you've been, again, climbing a hill with a backpack full of rocks. And then you realize you don't need to be carrying those rocks, so you take them out of your backpack. And then you actually skip up the mountain. You leap up it, because you've got no weight. And that's like, you get to that stage of your body vanishing. It will come back again. And the weird thing, it's perfectly safe. I did mention about Greg, who went into a deep meditation and was taken by his wife to hospital. But there's so much better stories than that. The stories, this is in the suttas, about this monk who went off into the jungle, well actually the forest, and he was sitting down there meditating, got into one of these deep meditations into one of the jhanas. And it just so happened that two villagers were going into that forest collecting, I don't know, mushrooms or herbs or something. And as they were in the jungle, they saw this monk sitting there. And they went up, he wasn't breathing. He really looked like he was dead. And these were very devout Buddhists. And this was in the time of the Buddha. And they thought, we can't leave a venerable just sitting in the forest dead. He'd get eaten by the jungle animals. And that's not very respectful. Is that a good way? If I die, you leave me in the forest somewhere? There are forests here in Hong Kong. If you leave me in the forest somewhere, so I get eaten by, I don't know, whatever, is that respectful? It's a great way of recycling. I wouldn't mind, to give some food to the other animals. But anyway, you wouldn't let me do that, would you? Would you? Oh, don't you love the animals? There's a lot of good food here. But anyway, so they said, we're in the forest. They got some wood in the forest, old wood, and they made a funeral pyre, and they put this venerable on top of the pyre, and then they did some chanting. I don't know what chanting it was, but anyway, they did something. And then they lit the pyre, and once the pyre was all alight, it wasn't going to go out, it's a big amount of wood with the venerable on top. They went off to do their business. Life is busy for the lay community. A monk can't expect them to be around all the time. So off they went to do their business, and the following morning they were very impressed and shocked that monk came into the village for alms food. He'd already been cremated, they thought. Not even his robes were burnt. This is something which I know, seen, that when a person gets in these deep meditations, they become invulnerable, even through fire. So if there is a big fire in this hotel, you don't need to try and escape or jump out the windows, it's too high up. Instead, just sit down there, get into a jhana, and you'll be safe. And that's the problem, I thought. It hasn't happened yet, but one day I'm sure it will, that some monk is meditating and gets into one of these deep meditations. You think he's dead, so you take him to the crematorium, and you put him in the oven, and once the people in the crematorium have finished doing the cremation ceremony or the burning, they open the door, and the monk, hi! Still inside, quite happy. Okay, that was in the time of the Buddha. What about today? These stories I love telling. Sometimes when we have weird stories, it's about ghosts and people get scared. Even though I try and tell you they're harmless. This is about like monks. This Indonesian monk. His name was Sudamo. I don't mind telling his name because he's now passed away. But when he was alive, I remember met him a couple of times. And he was one of these monks you just look at, this is a powerful monk. And I was friendly enough. He told me his story. As a young man in Java, he always wanted, to do something spiritual with his life. So he went into the jungle. This was quite a few years ago, when there was jungle in Java. These days it's almost like one city, from east to west. There's so much development there. But anyway, he found a nice piece of jungle. He went into a nice quiet place there, sat down and meditated. And I loved the way he told the story. English was not his first language, and so some of the words he said, I was kind of I obviously knew what he was talking about, But he spoke it in a really weird way. He said he was meditating, got very, very still, and then a star in the sky came towards him. And he married that star. What can earth that mean? When he told me what happened next, it was quite clear. The star was just an nimitta, these beautiful lights which came to him. And married means he just united with it, became one with it. And then, when he came out of his meditation, when he opened his eyes, like time, didn't really have the same meaning in the deep meditations. So when he opened his eyes, he noticed the forest in which he was sitting looked very different. It was the same place. When he asked the villagers, they told him there had been a flash flood in that area, and they couldn't believe he'd survived, because he must have been underwater by a meter or two of water for many days. How can you survive when you're basically at the bottom of a pool of water? He never realized anything which was going on to his body, because his mind was really peaceful and blissing out inside. He survived easy enough. But after that, that's when he could see him had all this power. And one of the things he would do, I love telling this story. Please don't ask me to do this. But he started teaching meditation in Wat Bhawan once a week. And one of my friends, she was a princess, a granddaughter of one of the kings of Thailand. And she rebelled. She went over to London and did art at Chelsea Art College. And when she was at Chelsea Art College, that's where people like Mick Jagger were. It was really rebellious from a Thai princess to go there. She was basically running away. And the reason I knew her very well, that eventually she married another artist at Chelsea Art College, and this was one of the only people in Chelsea Art College who was kicked out of Chelsea Art College. Even Mick Jagger was not kicked out, but this guy was. And the reason I knew him was because he was a fellow student at the school I went to, Latimer. And that's why we're talking about all the old school teachers we shared. And so he was a good friend. And so she started to become interested in Buddhist meditation because of the Western monks. And so she went to this class. I recommended him. But then she stopped going. And the reason she stopped going there, look, you've known me for a long time. Gerald, Freddie, everybody in the back, Della. I don't tell lies. I don't exaggerate. If I did, I would always tell you afterwards, this was just a joke. The vertical coffin, I never saw. That was actually made up. Don't have to be afraid. Anyway, many of you can get cough mix very easy to stop any coughing. But this was actually 100% real. During the meditation, when everyone had their eyes closed and he was giving some guidance, she sensed that there was something weird happening. So she opened her eyes. And what she saw, I have no doubt at all that what she said was 100% true. There were lights coming out of the monk's eyes. And they were shining into one of the women who was actually learning the meditation, helping her. But to see it like real, not on a movie or anything, not special effects, but real rays of light, like laser light, coming out of this monk's eyes into somebody else. Real psychic power. To actually see it, that freaked her out. So she got up, left, and never went back again. Would you like to see me do the laser light trick? You say that, but you know, if ever you see a psychic power like that, you read stories of that, even in the Buddha's suttas. If you see it, it's so powerful, you have fear. And I'd like to say that not just to interest you. That's the same which happens when you get deep into that lotus. What you see, you've never seen before. And it's powerful and beautiful, pure, so beautiful, it's scary. And you think you can handle it? If you see it, wow, no, not now. I'm not up for this. That's why I talk like this, to prepare you. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, not at all dangerous, so beneficial in every which way. But it's so powerful, you get afraid. I don't know your upbringing, but I do remember just reading like Christianity, because that was the background of the culture in which I was born and lived in. And you always said that when you see these great sort of powers, even like of a god, it's just scary. Scary because the intensity of that power, much more than you could ever handle. And this was just a monk with laser light eyes. It does become scary. So honestly, if monks do not show any powers, it's not because they haven't got them. A lot of times it's because they know if they showed them, there'd be big trouble. I don't think, oh no, come and show us. If I did something like that, you wouldn't come back. Power is scary. So anyhow, that was that monk. He was a really cool monk to do something like that. But not just that, to be able to meditate for a few days and be underwater all that time. So even to talk about that is so scary. But anyway, the 1,000-petal lotus, it's not to get powers, that's not what we meditate for. It's just like a byproduct. And so, as you get deeper and deeper into the lotus, you go past your body to your mind. And have you never heard the Buddha say that the mind is a forerunner of all things? It's amazingly powerful, much more powerful than you ever think. And that's one of the reasons why I first found out about that when we did this experiment for the Psychic Research Society. I've often mentioned this, but it really changed a lot of the way I thought. That we hypnotized one of the students. We're always trying to see who's easy to hypnotize, and we're all very willing to be experimented on. It was a kind way. And one of the things which they even told me, which is true, if you get hypnotized and you do something which is really dangerous for your health, you'll come out of hypnotism. You won't allow that to happen. There's always that background of self-preservation. But anyhow, we hypnotized one of these students, and we had this 4-inch nail on the end of a stick of wood. And we hypnotized this student to believe that that nail was red hot. It wasn't red hot, just room temperature, an ordinary nail. And we touched the student with this nail on his arm. He believed it was red hot. He'd been hypnotized to believe like that, not an ordinary belief, like a hypnotic-induced belief. He screamed in pain. That I could understand. But what really shocked me was to see a blister come up, a real blister in the spot where the nail had touched his skin. To me that was impossible. You know, he could believe it was hot, but it wasn't hot. It was just ordinary room temperature, but a blister came up. That's how powerful his mind was. And afterwards, years later, that left a lasting impression. It was shocking to see how powerful this mind is. If it could create a blister, why can't it uncreate a tumour? Why can't it not do these other things? It's not miraculous, it's just the nature of a mind when you cultivate it. That's why it's kind of scary, but it's also powerful. And that's one of the reasons why I do teach. I think I've told you that before. All the stuff you've seen, which is really powerful, that if we can somehow cultivate this more, we don't have to have so much suffering in this world. I've seen too many people who have breast cancers and other cancers, and it's really very painful and frightening. If there was another way which could help more people, I would feel really guilty if I don't do something to help. Then you can. And that's really one of the nicest things. What was that guy? I think I told the story. He had this sinus cancer, and he was breathing so loud in the retreat. Can you please, Ajahn Brahm, tell people to breathe quietly? There's other people meditating in this room. And when I told people that guy was dying of sinus cancer, the doctors had given up on him. He'd come to meditate because he heard that meditation can sometimes be the cure for these cancers. Nothing else was working. 9 days. And the last day, as usual, the last day, pop. I always remember how he said it. I had a popping sound, and I could breathe through my nose. This was not imagination. This was real. It wasn't fantasizing. He could actually breathe through his nose. And then it closed up again. And I asked him, carry on. Simple instructions. And 6 months later, this guy comes up to me in Sydney. I was giving a talk somewhere else. He saw I was giving a talk in this place. He turned up with a big smile on his face. Do you remember me? So many of you say that. And I've only got a limited amount of memory. And I have to be honest, I'm a monk. I usually say, no, who the heck are you? Sometimes I say, oh yeah, you're the lady whose name I keep forgetting. That's being polite. But this guy said, no, I don't know you. And that's when he smiled and he said he was that man. He carried on meditating. Many pops later, his tumour disappeared. Full remission. And now he looked different. Because when you're dying of cancer, of course you look really sick. But now he was fully recovered. And things like that. Maybe later on you maybe give me Ang Pao and stuff. Not for me, it's for monastery and the work we do, or some other monastery and the work they do. But Ang Pao is not what I do this. Oh, sorry, not Ang Pao, Lai Si. That's why I always say that if you're taking a photo of a monk and you want them to smile, you don't say cheese, you say Lai Si. I don't do that. But my pay, my reward is when you see people like that. They got their life back. And just they were dying. And I like to share that information to everybody. And that's what he said he would do. I often said, you don't need to say thanks. We call it paying it forward. And paying it forward, whatever you learn, which works for you, share it with others, your friends who can't come here. And just even just doctors. There's a lot of doctors here. There was this, told that story I think already about the young lady who was suffering from panic, deep chronic anxiety, and was bedridden because of it. I did tell that story, didn't I? No. I just told it to somebody. She was bedridden. She was a brilliant young woman. Her uncle lived in Perth. She was Thai, but she was studying in Adelaide University. And then when she was studying there, she had these panic attacks, which were so severe, she couldn't even get out of bed for weeks. And had the best medical care you could imagine in a good university for free. Nothing worked. So that's when her father contacted his brother, her uncle, and said, give a call to Ajahn Brahm. That's why I work very hard, because it's very effective and cheap. Very low cost. In other words, nothing. And that's when she called me. It was during our range retreat. I couldn't go visit her. I'm in Perth, she was in Adelaide. And that's when she said about her panic attacks. And I asked her, when you have a panic attack, it's always any emotional problem, you can actually manifest it in your body. It has that physical manifestation. I said, so, when you have a panic attack, how does it feel in your body? She said, oh, my chest was very tight. Your chest? I need more information. I asked her, you're a scientist, a dental student, so can you please tell me, measuring from your belly button, your navel, in millimeters, exactly where in your body is it manifested? And what shape is it? She was in bed all day and night, nothing to do. So she had all the time to be mindful of that physical manifestation of her panic attacks. And she was really a smart woman, young lady. So 3 days later, she gave me this call and said, now from my belly button, about 23.2 millimeters. I'm exaggerating there, but she gave this incredibly detailed description of, when she has a panic attack, how it feels on her body. More to the left, more to the right, and then more to the left, over this side. I said, great. Now you know where it's manifested. How does it actually feel? Give me a description. I said, well, it's tight, tense, burning. No, that's not good enough. I want it detailed. Give me a call in 3 days. Again, more mindfulness. Not just where it's located, but actually how it feels and how it develops. Does it get worse, more tense, less tense? So after 6 days when she called, I wish I could have recorded this, because it was a brilliant description of how she feels when she has a panic attack. Okay, now the next part of the therapy. When you have that panic attack, and you know where you feel it, take your hand and massage that area really kindly. I told somebody this recently, because when I was describing how to do a very soft massage on your tummy, I was doing it too. And it really feels nice. Massaging your tummy. But you do it with as much kindness as you possibly can. And so do that. She did have a live-in boyfriend called Lloyd. I'll tell you why I know his name very well later. But if you can't do it, you feel too exhausted, then get your boyfriend to do that. Boyfriends are usually very happy to massage their girlfriend's chest. So that's what she did. And after 9 days, then I asked her, did you follow the instructions? Yes. Well, what happened? Well, when I massaged the chest, all that tightness and tension on the chest because of the anxiety just disappeared. And then the next thing, I love saying this, it's kind of the light bulb moment for her. The eureka. Now I know why you asked me to do this. And I said, when the physical manifestation of anxiety disappears, what happens to the anxiety? And then she went so quiet. And after about 3 or 4 seconds, he said, that went too. Now you know how to deal with your anxiety. And I hung up. And in 2 or 3 days, she was out of bed. A really smart lady. She got first-class honours in dentistry and eventually got to this special course over in Sydney. And then the next thing I knew, she'd emailed me and said, Ajahn Brahm, oh, first of all, I've nominated you for Australian of the Year. Oh, come on. Yeah. But anyway, I never ever got that. But better than that, she said, Lloyd, my boyfriend, we decided to get married. Will you please do the blessing for us? And of course I did. They got married in the sunken gardens at University of WA. And of course they had to have me there for their marriage because I'd basically saved her life. And now they've got a dental clinic over in Floreat in Western Australia. And I still can't remember, they've got 2 kids or 3 kids. The reason, all boys. The reason I don't remember it's 2 or 3 because whenever I've gone to see them, they've all been running around. They're hard to count when they're so mobile. But what I was very happy with, and it actually worked. And anyway, I told that story many times. That's why I tell it many times. And, did you want to take your photograph? Come on. No, you said you wanted to take a photograph. Oh, you took another one. Oh, another one, okay. Okay, see ya. The reason I said that is because Gerald told me that somebody else wants to have their photograph taken, they have to leave early. And I thought it was that one. Okay, so anyway. And anyway, this other doctor in one of the hospitals, she had a patient with chronic anxiety. She had to have oxygen all the time because that's how anxious she was. And apparently they told me that in this hospital what the therapy was they had to take this medication, see if it worked, then the next medication, the first one doesn't work, then try the second one doesn't work, the third one doesn't work, the fourth, this whole list of medications. And nothing worked. And they got to the last medication, that wasn't working. And then this poor doctor, really busy, realizing the last medication wasn't working. She did actually what doctors aren't really allowed to do. She thought, well, Ajahn Brahm, I trust him. Let's do Ajahn Brahm's medication. So she taught this woman in the hospital, next time you have a panic attack, just notice where it is in your body, get your hand and massage it. She was really scared of what she said because that would be illegal. But anyway, it didn't really matter because the next morning when she went to hospital on her rounds, she saw the patient with no oxygen anymore and getting up and said, thank you, I feel fine now, I'm going home. It actually worked. And I scolded the doctor. Why didn't you do that at the beginning instead of wasting all that medication? It's effective. So that's one of the reasons why when you understand the power of the mind, make use of it. It's amazing what it can do. Anyway, I think I need to get my mind to slow down the clock because I'm always going over time. But anyway, was that useful for you? Very good. So I better stop now, otherwise I get into more trouble. I'm afraid I can't stop the clocks. Anyway, thank you for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, now somebody wants their photograph taken. Okay. You know, it's nice being an amenable monk. I don't mind just being here and having my photograph taken. Sometimes I feel that's the main purpose of life. Get my photo taken. How's my hair?
You need hair gel? Okay. Well. Okay, next, please.
Next, please. Oh,
We can take photos in the afternoon.
in the afternoon. Okay.
This lady is taking photos because she's leaving now.
Oh yeah, okay. When are you leaving? At the end, okay. Okay, so if anybody wants to take photos, just don't need to ask permission, just snap. I get very good. I get shot many times. Okay, so now we have interviews. Okay. I think this retreat could get sponsorship by, who actually does the cameras these days? By the camera companies? Those, it's mobile phones?
We don't get any sponsorships for
You don't?
photographs.
Well, so many photographs taken. I'm sure that this retreat is sponsored by, I know before they had these old cameras, like Kodak or something.
Now it's iPhone or
iPhone. Okay,
Samsung.
okay, so this retreat is sponsored by Apple iPhones.
We wish.
We wish. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to say a story about that. I know sometimes, really wealthy people, we think that must be so nice to be wealthy. But it's really a pain to be wealthy. And this is the reason behind this story. There was one of the farmers in northern California, and he was in his car, a beat-up old car, just going from the shop to his farm, and he saw there was another car, quite a lovely car, was actually broken down by the side of the road. And if you live in the countryside, even like us monks, if there's a car broken down, we'd always stop because it's very hard to get even mobile phone coverage, and sometimes even you can't ask for help. I remember seeing this one day in the early years of Bodhinyana Monastery, seeing this couple, and they've been broken down on this road between the prison and the dam all night. And we were the first in the morning to pass them, because of course we stopped. All they needed was their battery was flat, and so we had some jumper leads in the back of our car, so we stopped, just to charge up their battery so they could get home. There's an old couple, they were so scared. They'd been up all night in the middle of the forest, not wondering what would happen to them. Of course you stop. And I realized that's why we have that culture. All people, if you're in remote areas, you'd always help out if someone's stuck in their car. And anyway, this farmer stopped, and there was, this young man, not really young, maybe 30 or 40, in his car alone, and he couldn't get any mobile phone coverage, and his car was broken down. So of course the farmer helped, and he soon got his car fixed up, and the young man was just so thankful. I really thought I was really stuck for a long time. Thank you for helping. And they shook. And then the guy drove off, the farmer drove off. A few days later, the farmer got this letter from his bank. And the bank said, all your loans have been paid off. Even the loan for your car has been paid off. And a substantial amount has been deposited in your account by this gentleman called Bill Gates. If you're a very rich person, you don't go with a driver. You go by yourself. The sense of freedom No one is telling you what to do or where to go or how to drive. If you're rich, you don't have freedom. Even if you're just very poor but well known like me, how much freedom do I have? Okay, I'm not like a Bill Gates, but you can understand just how it feels. Get in your car and you go wherever you want to go. And that's what was happening. Bill Gates was in his car driving by himself, just enjoying a bit of freedom, and his car broke down. He could fix computers, but didn't know how to fix a car. And just out of gratitude, being helped by a poor farmer. And he got the number plate of the farmer's car, that's all he needed. And used all his connections to find out who the guy was, his bank account, and everything. And pay off all his bills. It's kind of nice. If ever you see anyone broken down by the side of the road, because rich people, they do have this kindness. They just want to make sure the money's well used. So anyway, that's a lovely story. I love that story. I don't know if it's true or not. I've got no sort of verification, but nevertheless, it deserves to be true. Okay, thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.